All right, good morning, everyone. I threw my hair up because I cannot find my hairbrush. So there's a beauty tip for you ladies right there. If you can't do something with your hair, throw it up. It's like one of the best hacks for your hair, right? If you have a knot in your hair, if you're having a bad day, put it up. It's a lot easier to deal with. So I want to talk about what is a wise woman because I've been watching some content about wisdom and I'm just like, starting a Bible study and I will probably be doing some lives. It's new for me. So, I mean, I've tried a couple, but I'm like, okay, do it some more and get better at it. So, I will be doing that. Don't worry about my thumbnails. I just had a thumbnail. It looked totally awful. I'm going to leave it. I'm not worried about it. Um, what is a wise woman? First of all, she's gospel centered. That is like the first characteristic of a godly woman. She loves God with all her heart. She loves him more than itself. I think that gives us boldness and does not allow us to be afraid because we know where we're going. We know that this life is just, you know, it's fleeting by, it's not here to last. We don't make our home on earth, so to say. We have homes on earth, but Christ is where our home is. He is our treasure. When people look at us, they should see something different and say, I want that. She's got something. I don't know what it is, but she's got something I want. And that is our life is hidden in Christ, right? There is a relationship with him and there should be a light that flows. So I had people compliment me. Last week I went to a Bible study. I had my white tank on, and these older women were standing outside a church and they're like, "Oh my goodness, you look so lovely. You look so springy. Look at you." And I wasn't even trying. I think it's the last thing I had in my basket before I had laundry. So I don't put a lot of emphasis in how I look. There's a lot of women on social media who are looking to get the attention with all the hair colors, all the makeup, everything. We don't need that, right? Our beauty is inner beauty. That's where our real beauty comes from. So, another thing is, what is her character like with her husband? Does she love her husband? Does she care about him? For me, for years, I served my husband. I served him morning, noon, and night all the time. And what I did was I had gotten a house for him too. I mean, he wanted this house, and I went to work so he could have it. And he became pretty prideful about it. He thought he was pretty hot after that. And I'm not trying to be mean, but it's the truth. So I let the house go and hoping his pride would go with it, and it didn't. But he filed for divorce. I brought him a motorcycle before this. I mean, I was constantly thinking of him. So sometimes, like I talked to this guy this week who is a street preacher, and he's like, "You're still married." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I know we are." And he's like, "So before God, you are still married." And I'm like, "Yep. But also, I am free to go because he has abandoned me." And that is something a wife is free to do. She has the choice. She can be like, "Okay, you left me and I have moved on," or she can stay single and be like, "Okay, I hope he repents." Um, and you can pray for him meanwhile. So, her love for her children is another thing she has. She absolutely loves her children, wants to spend time with them, wants to do what's right by them. That's another thing that she's like. She loves her neighbors. She's good to her neighbors. She's generous. So, that's one thing like I've been trying to do more of is think of my neighbors because when I was raising my kids, that was my full-time ministry, right? That's all I could do. And I would go to church and see all these people doing all this stuff and I'm like, I can't. I just can't. And I would do little things, right? Because you can always do something little like my neighbor, my elderly neighbor, I would take her out and do errands with her. And I would do small things, family. I was over there every weekend. I mean, I had all that to do. But for me personally, I couldn't do a whole lot with homeschooling. I mean, I had so many gaps that for me to homeschool took everything I had. And I really knew I had a goal to get through, get through high school. And and then with the cancer, and then that took a lot of work. My husband's cancer, and then let me see what else. Oh, having two more kids, which I loved, but that was more work to adjust to the teens and the little ones together. And just, family issues, trying to get through those. Not having a lot of money, living like disconnect with the water, the electric, going out and getting the resources to keep us afloat. That was like a second job basically. Um, so there was a lot to do, and I tell women now. Like I met a woman yesterday, and she was talking about how she wanted to do more with the pro-life movement, and this came my way twice. And I'm like, you know what? Your ministry is full time with your kids. You have a teenager, you have a little one. That is your ministry. I said, I couldn't do anything for years. And now I have the time to do stuff where I couldn't before. Now I could be full time in the pro life movement if I wanted, right? I have the time. Um, I'd have to get paid for it though because I need the pay. I met another woman that, well, I know her. We talked last year. I know who she is. We talk every now and then. She had to choose her job over volunteering, and she needs her job. So a lot of women need, to be paid for their work and can't just volunteer. Um, so like I said, I was talking to my neighbor last night. We're doing a Bible study, and then one of the kids came out, and I'm like, "Hey," and I had forgotten his name, and I said, "I want you to go to church with me in a couple weeks. They have a junior high ministry." I said, "You're going to fit in great. There's basketball, there's all kinds of sports." So he's like, "Okay." I didn't know how much I would have to say to him. He was just like, "Okay." So pretty easy. Good kid. But I can see these boys going the wrong way and hitting juvie very easily if people don't start jumping in and helping them. He did ask Christ into his heart. We had one of the ladies from a different church when I was out witnessing with this church come alongside him and actually open the Bible and show him the verses about salvation. She talked to him probably a good half hour, and she did a great job. She was very convicting with him, and anything he had to say, she kind of hushed him and said, "I'm teaching you something right now." Kind of old school, right? So he did accept Christ. A couple other boys here have accepted Christ, but they don't have anybody, bringing them to church or anything or helping them along. So yesterday when I was at church, I was impressed, talked to one of the boys who was leading one of the junior high groups. This church has their kids be prepared to help other kids to know Christ. So I'm like, "Well, this is the situation. What do you have?" And he's like, "We have this and this and this." I go, "Do you think, they'll fit in?" Just by the look of these kids, I could tell they would fit in. I mean, these kids are in church, but they got the cool look. They got the the hat on, the beanie hat. They got the cool looking, jewelry, and they look like they're very cultured too. So he's like, "Oh yeah, they'll fit in fine." So my next goal after I go away next weekend with my son is to get these kids into church. So a wise woman, she's building her own family first. She is very dedicated to her home, which I was for years. I stayed home. I took care of my home. I wasn't, I can feel lazy many times, and in some ways I am, but I also know I'm a hard worker. So laziness can be something that I can fall into, but I am a very hard worker. If I do fall into laziness, I get back up and I turn around and make sure I'm catching up with any laziness that I've had. Um, so she works hard. She is always looking out for her family. She's always looking at resources. She's always looking to do better. Um, she's dedicated to her community. She looks out for others. She's kind. Uh her words bring life to people. They're not just any old words. She leverages her talk. She knows how to say something a certain way that can bring conviction to people or encouragement. She knows how to use her words to bring life to people. And these are all different ways that a godly woman operates. I myself am continuing to get things down. Proverbs 31, that is my favorite. I would say one of my favorite verses in the Bible. Today I go by the calendar when I do Proverbs. So I'm back into the Proverbs. And today's the 2nd, so I'm reading October 2nd. I'm reading Proverbs 2, right? So now compare the wise woman to the woman who does not love God, right? And how she acts. This woman will be very selfish. It's all about her all the time. She doesn't know God. The cure for selfishness is to love God. That is the cure. Because what happens is it goes against your grain. Having devotions every day will go against the nature of ourself. Being outwardly focused, serving others will go against your grain of selfishness. So as women, we don't want to be selfish. Okay, we do want to enjoy ourselves. We do want to take good care of ourselves. We want to be able to tell people exactly what we want and, so that they know, don't leave people guessing. We want to share ourselves, okay, and develop ourselves. Those are all not selfish acts. That's all self care.